They have been in over 20 years. This is the lowest year we've had going back to at least 1990 and into the 80s. The crime rates are not going up, they're going down. Violent crime is going down. All of these cases are going down. It's not escalating, it's not worse out there. You know, actually, it doesn't. It doesn't at all look like the same guy. That would be great for the defense. The problem is, though, that there are witnesses that are going to come in a courtroom and say, that guy sitting over there is the very guy that I saw pull the trigger. So that's what's going to carry the day here. But let me get back to one point. Just because he's asked for a public defender doesn't mean he gets a public defender. The judge will determine what his assets are, what his income is, how much money he has, and if he doesn't qualify for a public defender, he can ask for one in the beginning, but he's going to be told to get a private lawyer.
What is going to be her defense, likely?
Well, you know, there's a history in the criminal justice system of mothers or husbands that are neglectful, and they either get called out of the bathroom for water boiling, food cooking, or something like that, and they forget. They become neglectful, they forget the child's in there, they get sidetracked, and then they come back in, and by the time they realize that something tragic like this has happened. So I think her defense is going to be based basically on that scenario, saying, you know, she made a horrible mistake. Obviously, she didn't want her child to die. The question for the jury and for a judge in this case will be whether it's reckless disregard for the safety of her child, and that's where the battle will be fought. Whether this rises to that level of reckless disregard, or if it's one of those events that happen that happens to some people, and it's just a horrible, unfortunate event. You know, well, the big question here, though, is why is she a mother if she doesn't know better than to leave her 13-month-old in the bathtub?
And Jeff Brown, a criminal defense attorney. Jeff, you've been hearing all of this. What is your take on what's going on here? I mean, it's not going to be coincidence that she wants to get this program to learn Spanish right before she disappears, and the cops say she crossed over.
Yeah, Mike's made some real good points. I agree with him that if somebody was planning on leaving, they're going to take their bank account, they're going to take money with them. So I agree with him on that point. But I think the evidence is quite clear that they knew they were going to Mexico. They knew that might come about. The popcorn bowls, or what I understand are cereal bowls with popcorn in them, would indicate the two kids are probably on the couch or having popcorn. It sounds like this family is moving at the last second. So I have to go with Mike on this theory that there's somebody putting pressure on them, and they felt like they had to get out of town. The question is, why are they getting out of town? Who is it that's after them? Who has something on them that's making this family leave right in almost, you know, the last second and not have contact with their family?
There's no homeopathic medicine called anger. What's that about?
Yeah, that's extremely interesting to me. What that shows, though, is where I kind of disagree here that they were under pressure by somebody in those 4 days, because I think there were some phone calls being made by both of them that would indicate life is kind of going on. It doesn't sound like they're being threatened. It doesn't sound like they're being kept in a motel room. So those calls, though, are real interesting, because she's calling about this drug that doesn't exist, and I think Mike's brother was actually calling somebody at work, acting as if work was going on.
And we saw that in the Anna Nicole Smith case, and we're seeing it here too. I go to doctors. I'm not friends with any of them. I don't hang out with them. I don't visit their office and dance around.
Yeah, that's true, but as in Anna Nicole Smith case, as you noticed, there wasn't a prosecution there. There's a lot of hurdles they're going to have to overcome. First, you're going to have to find out through the toxicology reports that there are drugs in his system. Then you're going to have to say those drugs were the cause of death. Then the real hard part comes into this case. The question then becomes, how did those drugs get in his system? Is there a doctor there injecting him? So a doctor might have a reason here to see the injections and know that he's doing too much? Or is Michael doing this on his own so a doctor doesn't know the frequency? So it's going to be really hard to take a doctor and put him into a criminal courtroom and say that there's a manslaughter case here, unless you actually know what the doctor's doing and there are witnesses seeing him do it.
I am friends with some of my patients. It doesn't change how I prescribe to them.
Right, the false names is one thing, but the question becomes here is these prescriptions, what's the volume? How many prescriptions are they writing? That's where this case will rest with Michael Jackson. Suddenly made a sexual reference and grabbed the genitals of Lance Corporal Bruce.
Brown says Bruce had to strike back.
Lance Corporal Bruce defended himself with the full legality of the law from being sexually attacked and potentially robbed. The driver of that vehicle, who was clearly trespassing in a secured parking garage, dressed in robes and sandals with a long beard, suddenly made a sexual reference and grabbed the genitals of Lance Corporal Bruce.
All right, Jeff Brown, you're shaking your head.
No, I think it is a witch hunt. Come on, we don't have any facts to support any of these accusations. Desiree says, I have no doubt. Maybe she has no doubt, but please give me a fact as to why I'm supposed to believe she has no doubt. There are no facts to support any of this. It's just accusations, and it's really coming from Kane himself as well as Desiree. But everybody wants to say she's the prime suspect or it's suspicious, but nobody's giving me any facts. And I think we do need to hold back and say, wait a second, let's not judge this case and say she has a duty to tell where the kid is. We don't know that she took the kid, and there's no facts that suggest that she did.
One at a time, or I've got to bring out the big gavel. Okay, Jeff Brown, your turn.
Maybe there's nothing else to say. She's told everybody what happened. She dropped him off at the science fair, and she left him at 8:45. You can't do anything more than that if that's the truth. Because that's all she can say, and she's still being looked at. Because she's still being looked at as a suspect, even though she's told them that.
Do you see what you just did, though, Jeff? You said she's got nothing else to say, but she's hiding behind the Fifth Amendment. That doesn't exactly.
She's not hiding. She has nothing else to say. How long are you going to keep calling her a suspect?
Then she doesn't have to take the Fifth. Then she doesn't have to assert her Fifth Amendment.
She's not the one who started all this. Plus, she can still argue that she has a valid claim of invasion of privacy and emotional distress. Jeff?
Well, it's hard to argue that she's emotionally distressed when she's getting all this fame and publicity, and it looks like there's nothing bothering her. But come on, we're saying that the hotel did something wrong? That's ridiculous in here. There's nothing but publicity in it for her. The hotel didn't do anything wrong. If she wants to say that a hotel can't tell somebody who their guest is, then Jane, when you come to Tampa, I can't call the hotel. Because if I did, and they said,
right.
oh, I'll connect you to the room.
When I come to Tampa, you cannot call the hotel and find out where I'm staying.
Nobody can call you then. Nobody can call and say, can I speak to the room with Jane Velez Mitchell? Because if they say yes and connect you, they're affirming that you're at the hotel. It's ridiculous. There's no negligence on the hotel's part. It's just publicity, and it's going to get thrown out as far as the hotel goes. It's going to get bounced on a summary judgment in favor of the hotels, and here's the reason why. It's because when he checked in, allegedly when he would go to the hotels, he would tell them that he's either a friend of hers or he's working with her, so they don't know that that's not true. And you can't impose a duty on the hotel to have to sit back and screen everybody and say, so, you say you know Jane. How do you know Jane?
Jeff Brown, intimate partner violence is a huge problem in this country. Doesn't it make sense that the person who did this is probably some kind of boyfriend?
I really can't say. I don't think we have any facts. We don't even know if this is the murderer. I mean, all we know is that this man is wheeling a suitcase. We don't have any evidence that he knew what was in it. Maybe he's paid, and someone said, here's $100, take this suitcase and drop it across the street. We really don't know much about this yet, but whoever did this murder, obviously it was a brutal murder, and that person hopefully will be caught and punished. But let's not rush to judgment. We don't know what this man's role in this was. And if I was his lawyer and I was able to say that he got paid to dump that suitcase, I think a judge would have to grant a judgment of acquittal. There's no evidence that he actually knew. There's nothing right now.
Why don't we spend the money to upgrade all the video surveillance cameras out there? Give people tax breaks for having the top of the line. We spend millions of dollars on prosecutions and investigations. Why not be preemptive and at least have the video cameras that are out there more effective? And I'll throw it out to Jeff Brown because you're so argumentative.
Well, I don't know what the reason is other than it's finances. But keep in mind, 20 years ago when I was a prosecutor, we didn't have the luxury of having videos at all. So this is still a step forward. We're still moving forward as far as the tools that law enforcement have. But if you want better quality videos, I mean, it's definitely out there. I know in Florida, and Stacey will tell you this too, we have these cameras now that can take the back of a picture of the back of your license plate when you go past a toll at 60 miles an hour, and they can read them pretty well. So I think the technology is there, but it always comes down to the same thing. Where are we going to get the money, and are people actually going to be willing to pay more taxes to be able to have this technology?
That's where I disagree. And if the criminals knew that we had cameras with really high definition out there, they would be less likely to be walking down the street pulling a suitcase with a dead woman inside, Jeff Brown.
Yeah, but I don't want to live in a society where everything I do is filmed constantly, 24/7. I don't want that.
But it's outside.
I don't want everything outside
one
being
at a time.
filmed.
But does it complicate it, Jeff Brown, if the defense attorneys are right and it actually wasn't viewed by others, even though Tyler may have thought it was viewed?
Yeah, well, it all depends upon the wording of the New Jersey statute. It's one thing to tape something, but it's another thing to actually show it. Some statutes, however, say that it has the potential or the capability to be showed, that it's kind of like an attempt crime, and therefore that's prosecutorable as well. So it all depends upon the language of the statute. But, the real problem here is that we have kids and college students that for some reason think that this is appropriate behavior. And I fault them and I fault their parents for not teaching them better. No, that's exactly what may happen in this case, and that's not uncommon to have these situations. But Stacey's right. There's no way to police all of these dorm rooms. But let's keep this in mind too. The family, the parents for this kid are not saying that they are going to sue Rutgers. All they've done right now is preserve the right to think about it and sue them if they so choose. And I think better heads will prevail, and they'll realize that there really isn't a lawsuit against Rutgers.
One thing we got to do, we got to
against
stop
these kids.
gay